Today I'm going to try to do a super quick reference on how to do a modal with JavaScript. So I'm going to try to use the least of CSS that I can just to kind of keep it simple. But first things first is HTML. We have our doc type HTML, which is just saying to the browser that I want to write in HTML5, that I have HTML tags and my body tags. So whatever's inside the body tags is what's going to appear on the screen on the left. So the first thing I'm going to do is set a div. Actually, no, let me just do a button and give it a type of button, and I'm going to say modal so that, when I click on it, the modal should pop up. And that's kind of it for the button. Now, in JavaScript, I would want to target that button. So I'm going to create a variable button and I'm going to set it equal to the HTML's button. So how do I do this? I do this by accessing the document, which is just your browser's copy of your HTML page. Now, you might be asking, why does my browser need to make a copy of my HTML page? Well, it's because JavaScript is an object-oriented programming language, meaning it only works with objects, and your HTML elements are not objects. So that's why the browser actually makes a copy of your HTML page and converts those elements into objects, well, into nodes, but besides the point, objects. Basically, at the end of the day, they're objects that JavaScript can access and work with now. And that copy is called the document object model, the DOM, which in JavaScript you get by accessing the document. And then you can access things from the document by using functions such as dot query selector, which actually selects the first element that you specify. So for me, that would be button. And yeah, that's it. And so now for the modal part, what is actually going to pop up, I'm gonna actually have to create this. So I'm going to do a div. I'm going to do class actually. Let me do ID modal container. And the modal container is just going to contain something like this is the modal. And I'm going to go into CSS and I'm going to do dot, actually no, hashtag modal container because you target IDs with hashtags. All right, and then at this point, I would just give it a background of, I don't know, something like blue, it doesn't really matter. And then I would do height, actually position absolute, and then I would do height 100% and then width 100%. And then I would say from the top 0 and from the left 0, so it covers the entirety of the screen. All right, there we go. And then I'm just going to change the stuff on the inside color to be white so I can see it. And just font size, something like, I don't know, 30 pixels. So it's big. All right, and then that's the modal. That's what I want to pop up. So I'm going to click over here, give it a display of none so that it disappears. And so now I would want to go into JavaScript and target the modal. So I'm going to do modal container. Set it equal to document. I'm going to access it by doing get element by ID, which is another function, and I said modal container. And then what I want is to create a function. So do variable, I'm going to say on button click, and I'm going to say function, and I'm just going to write what I want to happen inside these little brackets here. Right, so I'll say, okay, what I want to happen is I want the modal container to have a display of block, meaning it's going to appear when I click on the button. So to do that, I'm going to have to access the modal container. I'm going to have to access its CSS, so that's style, and then I'll do the property that I want to access, which is display, and just set it equal to what I want it to be, and I want it to be block. And that's it. So then you notice that if I click on the button, nothing happens, and that's because we haven't told the button what to like we haven't told the button to actually do anything. We just created a function, right? So to do this, I'm going to do dot button and I'm going to add an event listener. And this is going to allow the button to listen for an event. And that's going to be when I click on it. So it's waiting until you click on it. And then when you click on it, it's going to call this function unbutton, right? And then if I click on it, let me save this. Let's see, get element by ID, document, variable model container. Did I give it an ID in model container? Display, style, model container, display, block, add event listener, dot button, document, dot query selector. I spelled selector wrong. Selector. All right. Now when I click on it, it works. Beautiful. Now you might be wondering, how do I get out of this, right? So for that, I usually use like an image as in like an X. So I think I could just do that really quickly over here. I could do let's do a div, give it an ID of X and just have it say X. But I usually do an image, but to keep things simple, just let me do that. And really, I'm gonna go to CSS and I'll be able to see it right here. Um, so I'll just target the X, I guess. So I'll just do variable, I'll call it X, document dot get element by ID, do X, and then I'll just create a function. Actually, yeah, so I'll create a function called on X click. And what I want to happen is that I want, when I click on the X, I want the modal container um, display to go back to being none so that it disappears, right? And then I have to tell the X that I want that to happen. So I'll do X dot add event listener so that it listens, list, that it listens for when it's clicked on, and when it is clicked on, it's going to call this function on X click, right? That's going to have the modal container go back to none. So if I click on this and then click on the X, right, it works. Beautiful. All right. And again, I told myself I'm not going to do a lot of SCSS, so I'm just going to keep the X there, even though that's so visually pleasing. That's kind of the idea of the modal. Bye.